Hey everybody, welcome to the studio this evening. So tonight we are going to paint all of these popsicles. Here's my paints, my M-gram paints that I normally use. There they are on the paint cam. And here are my popsicles. I've got them pre-drawn out. I am using my Da Vinci 418 squirrel hair brush to paint all of these with. I'm going to start with my yellow popsicle. I want to, while my water is clean-ish and while my brush is clean-ish, I'm going to dip into the yellow so it can be as yellow and not tainted with other colors as possible. There we go. I should say I am using my Pro Art paper. The size is 16 by 20, I believe, in a spiral bound pack. I've cut it out of that pack. And in order to put a shadow side on these popsicles, I'm just using a little bit of Azo orange here and a little bit of gamboge, and it's going to give it just a little bit of a shadow side here, not too much. I'm not too worried about it at this point. I'm just putting in some base color. We're going to come back and do a lot of work on this anyways. But there it is. There's my orange one, and just going to jump right over and do, did I say that last one was my orange one? I meant my yellow popsicle. Here we go, painting an orange popsicle now, and just dipping right into that orange paint. Pretty straight, nothing else in there. Good, good, good. It's looking like I might need to fill that orange paint back up again, and again a little bit low. Hopefully I won't run out while I'm doing this and have to stop and refill, but there it is. There's my orange popsicle, and to put a little shadow side in here, I'm grabbing a little bit of Pyrrole red, a little bit of alizarin crimson, just mixing that with my yellow to make just a bit of a darker orange. There you can see, and dropping in a little line here and there where I know there's going to be a darker shadow in the end product. There we go. And if you look back at that yellow popsicle, it already looks like it's got a bit of roundness to it. Like as the paint dries, you can really see how that's going to turn out. All right, I've moved on to my red popsicle. I'm going to paint it just as red as I can get it. The most reddish red I've got here is my Pyrrole red, and so that's what I'm using. It's a super bright red. There we go. Pull it right on down those sides, just trying to keep those sides nice and straight, and for once keep it in between the lines. All right. I'm trying real hard to keep that shape and not get too far outside the lines, although I sometimes have done that, and I don't have a good darker red, but I've got this maroon perylene, and I've got a mineral violet over there, which should help me give just a little bit of a dark side to this. All right, and here's another color that I may be running out of a little bit, and this is phthalo green. It's going on and not looking all that phthalo-y, but believe me, it is a nice bright green. There we go, just pulling it down. Good, and this is going to make for a nice, fantastic green color popsicle. There it is. I should say I am doing a voiceover because it's so fun to paint with the radio on, and I can just relax and do it. Sometimes I don't always do my best work if I'm trying to talk while I paint. You've probably seen that from time to time, or what you've seen is that I have to stop painting while I talk, or stop talking while I paint, in order to get things done. So I do a bit of voiceover work on my videos, unfortunately, and this is one of those times, but we're going to get through it. And if you would like to see or hear me talk and paint, woohoo, all at the same time, I do have a live stream that I do every Saturday Pacific at 8 p.m. in which I attempt to talk, answer questions, and paint all at the same time. Sometimes a bit more successfully than others, I will admit. But it's always fun, always a good time, and I really enjoy it. I think everybody who joins me really enjoys it. Okay, this is basically a turquoise blue, a little bit of cobalt blue in there, and there we go. Same deal as the others. Just dropping in a few lines where I think there are going to be some obvious shadows coming up. And in keeping with how I do things, I'm going to paint right behind where the paint cam is showing my palette. I will move this in just a second when I realize what I'm doing. There we go. Sometimes it's tough to look at the computer or the camera and see where I'm at on my painting surface, and sometimes I get a little bit confused. So in order to make a little bit darker mix here, actually I thought I was putting on a little shadow there, but as I'm remembering it, the purple that I have on my palette is very granulating, very, very granulating. So I'm mixing a little bit of the maroon perylene in with that purple in hopes of toning down that granulation just a little bit. Okay, so I've got all the basic colors of these popsicles done, and so it's time to move on to some popsicle sticks. Here they are. And this is just a mix of a little bit of sepia with a little bit of yellow ochre, and I think it turns into a wonderful popsicle stick color. Just putting it on for each of them here. A little yellow ochre, a little sepia. Shoom, shoom, right on down. A lot of straight lines, straight painting in this video, but it really does pay off in the end, in that this is one of my favorite paintings that I've done probably in the past year. I do have this one hanging in my office as I'm recording this. I also have this for sale on Etsy, on my Etsy shop. If anybody cares to take it off my hands, link to my shop can be found below, or it can be found via my website, which is watercolorswithmichael.com. And once again, I'm painting behind the paint can box. I have to move it out. Okay, what I'm doing here is I'm looking to see, well, first of all, which popsicles are dry enough to paint on a second time, and maybe which, where on these popsicles I need to add a few lines to make them resemble a popsicle, a real-life popsicle. So I've got that, and the popsicles are not really round. They're kind of box-ish shape if you were to have cut them in half. And they have these lines on them, I'm assuming from the molds that travel down the length of these. So that's what I'm going to be doing with all of these, are just going through the popsicle and dropping in some lines here and there. And you see, they're not necessarily always straight lines. They do waver a little bit, and that is okay, because on the reference photo and in real life, not all of this popsicle is exactly straight. Maybe it came out of the mold, it melted a little bit, maybe the mold isn't quite right after having made, I don't know how many popsicles you make, a day, a week, a year. I would assume it's a lot of popsicles that these companies make. But here we go, and I don't necessarily want a hard line on all of this, so I'm putting on the paint and I'm softening the edge just a little bit with it. There we go. Got that, got that. If you are wondering, no, I don't really paint this fast. I have sped this up to make it a little bit more bearable for everybody. It's a 23-minute video as it is. It started as a 45-minute video, but that's why I sped it up a little bit. 45 minutes, probably a bit too long for anybody to watch me painting popsicles. In the end, though, regardless of how long it was going to take me to paint these popsicles, they turned out, in my opinion, fantastic. Like I said, one of my favorite paintings. There we go, just softening that edge up a little bit. And if you look at that red popsicle, you can already see it's beginning to look like a popsicle that may have come out of a package already. It's got some life to it now that it's more than just a red blob on a stick. I don't know how to say it any more than that. Okay, so I'm going to leave that orange one like that. I'm going to move on to the yellow one. Now, yellow is tough to do any kind of shadowing in because shadows in yellow aren't blue, because you put blue on and that would make kind of a green color. So our shadows are an orange or a red color when you paint them on yellow. So I'm trying to get the right value to that orange. There we go, and still have it look like it's yellow and not orange. A little bit tricky. I think I pulled it off. And that line that I put on the left-hand side of all these popsicles is very important, so it appears as though there's a corner to that popsicle. It doesn't just go to the edge and that's it. It's not flat. All right, as moving on to my phthalo green popsicle. Here we go. Boom, grabbing just some of that phthalo straight out of there. I'm not even trying to dilute it much. I'm not trying to thin it down. I'm using it pretty much straight out of the well that it's in. And I'm definitely going to need to get some more phthalo green in my palette before too long. Oh, and there we go. Perfect, perfect, perfect. I have put my palm right in the corner of that. That's all right. We can fix that up. There. Done. Fixed. And we can get that little bit of paint off of the paper in just a little bit. Here we go. We're just putting that on there. I am using the silver black velvet brushes on this video. Or I am now anyways. They are just a little bit easier to control the water with than is the Da Vinci mop brush. I love that Da Vinci mop brush, but if I have to do any kind of detail work, it really it holds so much water and releases so much water that it's a bit difficult to do any detail work with unless you're very, very careful. These silver black velvet brushes are much more forgiving, much easier to use when you're doing something like this, and they come to such a fantastic point that if you need a tiny little line, they can do it with ease. So that's why I switched brushes. That's why I have the silver brush in my hand right now. It's always funny to say it's a silver brush when it's a black brush. It always seems to me like silver is not the right name for the brand of brushes for these. Anyways, That's a me thing. It's not a brush thing. The brush is actually pretty good. Okay, and doing the same thing with the blue popsicles. And moving on to my purple popsicle, you can see there in the video, it's a bit granulated. That's what the purple does. It really drops out like that. That maroon perylene is not a granulating color, so it will hold on the paper a little bit better, a little bit smoother. I think in the end, you don't even notice any of that granulation in the final painting, but it could have looked a little funny had I just used the purple. All right, and same thing with the other popsicles, just putting in the lines, up and down vertical lines. Anywhere I think there's a bit of a depression on these, anywhere that I think there needs to be a bit of a low light, not a high light, and something like this. Good, good, good. All right, let me wash my brush, and let's come back and do one more crack at all of these. I'm just looking at the reference photo, and where I think I need a little bit of extra work on these, I'm just going to put in a little bit more, and we'll go from one to the next, just like we did on the previous layer. I will probably leave a few more hard edges on this one, although you see me smoothing out my edges there, but I do leave a couple of more hard edges on here. This is more of a detail layer than a laying in of color layer. So it's going to call for maybe a harder edge here and there, but not too much. And now you can see that popsicle really looks like it's got a lot of texture to it. It really looks like, yeah, there we go. Okay, I'm going to move back to the blue one apparently. And just looking at that reference photo, wherever I think it needs to be darkened up. Like I said, this is the detail work here. Doing those little things, that little extra that's going to make your painting stand out that little bit more. Just taking a bit of that thin paint and putting it on there. Just enough to make the highlights, the lighter lights stand out a little bit more, but not enough to cover too much up. Oh boy, and that is looking good, looking good. I'm going to move on to the purple one again. And as I said, I'm leaving maybe a few more just lines, a few more hard edges in here. Because it is more of the detailed layer, I can get away with a little bit more of that. Oh, and a little bit, so this is mostly sepia, a little bit of ochre, but mostly sepia here. And I'm just putting in a little bit of shadow underneath the popsicle and down one side of the popsicle stick on a few of these. There, I don't need a whole lot. Just the indication of a little bit of shadow on that popsicle stick. I really do need to work on keeping my... maybe I'll put some tape on my painting surface here so I'll know where I can move that page to, and that'll help keep me in line a little bit more, I guess. I really do seem to be moving more and more to the right on these paintings. I don't want to do that. There we go. A couple of lines on a few of these popsicle sticks. It's going to add a bit of dimension to these popsicle sticks. It doesn't seem like it would be much, but it's just enough. Just enough. Okay, now I'm really going to go and put on some highlights on here. Just drop them on. And strangely enough, with these, they don't need to be quite as precise as you would really think. You can always say there's a bit of glisten coming off of these popsicles at any point where they've started to melt a little bit, or maybe even it's just a bit of ice that you see. But as I put this on, it really does help bring these to life just a little bit more. I'm definitely going to have to start putting a little bit of tape on my painting surface to keep my paintings from wandering. There we go. Now you can see what I'm doing. Just wherever there might be a bit of light hitting off of our popsicle, just going to drop in a little bit of this. This is white watercolor. It's semi-transparent, so it's going to dry a bit lighter than it is. So when I use it, I've got to put it on a bit darker or go back for a second layer on all of these. And this is, I'm just putting it on with an old rigger brush that I've got. You can see the paint is all cracked and broken off of it. I've probably had this for 8-9 years or more. It just sits in with the rest of the brushes and gets pulled out every now and again for something like this. Anyways, there it is. I hope you enjoyed watching me paint these popsicles. There we go. If you did, please hit the subscribe button down below and give a thumbs up to the video. Until next time, thank you all so much for joining me. We'll see you next time in the studio. Bye-bye.